So we are talking about lots of crazy things happening in the world. First thing is a story which will have deep ramifications for abortion nationwide. So if you are somebody who is interested in protecting the woman's right to choose in this country, then this is for you. So what exactly is going on, right? So there is a lawsuit currently which is about to be decided within the next couple of days that has to do with an abortion drug called mifepristone. Right. Now this drug is a part of a two-drug combination along with another one called misoprostol, right? And that's what is used in roughly 50% of the abortions in the entire country, which are chemically induced, right? So you give them a combination of these two drugs, and it's quick and painless and roughly 99% effective, right? Which means the conservatives and the Trump people and the MAGA people and all those guys need to do everything they can to take it away. So that's kind of what's going on here, is that that's sort of why they went to Texas to a Trump-appointed judge in order to get a lawsuit going, in order to try to say that, try to outlaw this drug, right? And since this is a federal court case, it won't just ban use of this drug in Texas. It'll ban it across the entire country, right? Now, keep in mind that means that women who get abortions in, states where abortion is legal, such as California or New York or Washington, will suddenly find themselves unable to get a chemically induced abortion using this two-drug combo, right? Now, why does that matter? Well, so the thing is that apparently you can just get an abortion using the second drug in that combination, which is misoprostol, right? However, it takes longer, it's less effective, and then there's also more pain involved, more like cramps, more instances of bleeding, stuff like that. So it will just prolong the suffering of the woman getting the abortion, thereby making abortions less attractive to people, and thereby cutting down on the number of abortions and increasing the number of unwanted births, right? Which is exactly what the conservatives and the Republicans and the MAGA chuds and, Christian nationalists and all that, that's exactly what they want, right? They want to increase the suffering of women as much as humanly possible because they don't care about freedom, they just care about enforcing their will on everybody, right? And that's exactly what's going on here, folks, right? Now, because that's the thing, see, if you were going to say, like, well, this is all about states' rights, because that's what they told us. They said that this was going to be, when they overturned Roe v. Wade last year, they said this was going to be about states' rights. And they said that, hey, nobody panic, nobody go crazy, right? It will just go back to the states, and every state will have the right to choose whether or not they want to have abortion be legal in their state. And that's complete and total BS, because ever since then, the anti-abortion people have been doing everything in their power to make that ban nationwide. And this is just another step in that direction. Lantern Light, how you going? How's it going, man? Glad you joined. I hope you didn't see my first two false starts with this stream. So hopefully you didn't see that embarrassing fiasco, but now it seems like we're going and everything's cool. So yeah, that's the whole thing about this. So this judge's name is Matthew Kacsmaryk, right? And the thing is that he tried to delay the he tried to basically hide the fact that this was going on. He delayed notice of the hearing, in order to kind of keep this hearing out of the national spotlight, right? So that it would just be like nice and quiet, and they wouldn't have protesters and all that other crap, and it wouldn't turn into a giant nationwide fiasco. So that way they can just ban this drug in peace, you know. And it kind of looks like it happened because it's not really being talked about very much especially on the mainstream news, the mainstream media. They're not talking about this at all. So we could very well wake up, and within the next couple of days and find out that this drug, mifepristol, right? Or sorry, it is not. It's not that. It's mifepristone. That's how you pronounce it. I will learn how to pronounce that word. We could very well find out that, come Thursday or Friday, that drug is completely banned, right? And the right-wing, Christian evangelist, nationalists, right, are one step closer into instituting their theocracy on the rest of us, right? Because, first off, it's not going to just stop with that drug. Okay, they'll ban that drug, and then they will immediately try to ban the other drug, right? That's what they'll do, right? So it'll be like, oh, abortions are still legal, you just can't get, chemically induced ones anymore, right? Or they'll have to use some other shittier drug, which is more risky, and which could cause more pain and suffering, right? And then they'll just try to get that one banned, and then the other one banned, and that's what they'll do. So it's like, they're using all of the tools of the government to their advantage, because that's the main thing about fascists, right? To remember, fascists don't actually believe in the rule of law except when it benefits them. So if they can use the tool of law and government in order to enforce their will on everybody else, they're A-okay with that. But the minute you turn that the other way, and the government does something that they don't like, I don't know, enforce civil rights, or, human rights, or anything like that, or help poor people, or anything like that conflicts with the fascist ideology, suddenly the government becomes a big giant no-no, and they hate it with everything they've got, right? Just like, like we said, this was supposed to be about states' rights. That's what they said, right? They said when they ban it, it'll just be about states' rights. Well, what the hell kind of like, where does banning the use of a drug nationwide, how does that fall into states' rights? Because that seems to be the exact opposite of states' rights, right? Because it never was about that. That was just a lie from the beginning in order to get the moderates on board, And now they're going to basically enforce their law, They're going to enforce their will into the using the force of law. I guess that's a better way to put it. On the rest of us, And so what's going to happen, right? If you're a doctor and you use this drug that has been used for 20 years at this point in order to give a safe, effective abortion, which doesn't hurt anybody, you will go to jail, It's force. When you get the police involved, it's force. Because that's another thing that the conservatives will tell you. Well, nobody's forcing you to do anything, You still have these options. It's like, no. It's a game, right? It's the same way like, like we mentioned in a video this past week, I mentioned that there are 2 states out there that abortion is still legal in. I think it was Wisconsin and Michigan, I think. Abortion is still legal in those states. It might not be Michigan, but I know Wisconsin is one of them. It's still legal there, but there are no abortion providers left in that state. They've all been basically essentially run out of town, right? Through things like overregulation, right? And when I say overregulation, I mean unrealistic regulations that no one can possibly adhere to, right? Regulations that don't actually help anybody or keep anybody safe. Things like requiring a full-time surgeon on staff, right? at an abortion clinic, stuff like that, or saying that the building has to be this big, or it has to have this many, it has to have like a full-time anesthesiologist on staff and all this other shit, stuff that you don't need for abortion, that only makes it more expensive and is designed to prevent abortion clinics from ever running. It's the same kind of thing they do when you have like weird protectionism going on in other industries, right? Same kind of stuff like that, but they're just applying it towards abortion. It's sort of like, like way back in the 1930s and 40s when marijuana was legal, and then they said, okay, well, you can own it as long as you get this stamp, and this was the first sort of step towards prohibition of marijuana. Way back in the day, they said, okay, you can own it, but you can have it, but you have to have a certain like permit. It was a stamp that you had to acquire from the Food and Drug Administration, and then they just never gave out the permits, so no one was ever able to actually possess any, right? Because you had to have this permit, and then they would just not issue the permits to everybody. That kind of thing, right? It's a law specifically designed to do what's sort of like a soft ban. And that's what's happened in these two states, and that's sort of why they're doing the same thing here. It's not, oh, we're not actually banning abortion, we're just making it totally impossible for anyone to get one, because conservatives don't believe in freedom, right? They don't believe in it at all. If they cared about freedom, then they would expand. They wouldn't do anything. I mean, here's the thing, right? You can just be, neutral, which is, maybe that's how the actual government should be. Maybe they should just be neutral on everything, right? No laws in support of or no laws against abortion, right? That would be absolutely fine. I think most people would be okay with that on a national level, right? And it's kind of already like that. Like there's a rule in place that's been in place for a long, long time. At least I don't know if I think it's still in place. It basically says no federal spending, like bills, can go towards abortion. Like the government, like basically spending any money to like help abortion at all. That's like a rule, like especially when it comes to aid that goes to other countries, that kind of thing. That rule's been in place, as far as I think, pretty much for decades at this point. Stuff like that. And the thing is, I don't think anybody would really complain about that. That's a decent compromise. You know what I mean? When it comes to this issue. An issue such as abortion, where everyone is very deeply divided. That's a perfectly reasonable compromise to say, okay, well, we won't spend any federal tax dollars in support of abortion one way or the other. Basically means that that ear looks like shit. We're just going to erase that. So, this is my webcomic, by the way. I'm going for sort of more of a minimalist approach, because, my work is usually, like, over-detailed and stuff like that. So, in my webcomic, I try to keep it a little cleaner. Try not to go completely nuts with all the crazy squiggly lines and that kind of thing. Yeah, we just need a hint. It doesn't have to be like super detailed here. Just a little hint of an ear, right? Anyway, Lantern Light. They want poor children to grow up to be desperate teenagers because where military service isn't compulsory, they want sign-ups. I think that's part of it. I think a large part of it, though, is really just religion. It's the religion of... There we go. Just a little hint of an ear. Doesn't have to be too crazy, right? A big part of it is religion. It's the religion of Christian dominionists, right? And I think there's... the thing is that I know that not all of them believe it, right? I know a big portion of it is sort of like politicians just using this issue to get elected, right? And to sort of motivate the base to go out and vote for them. It's been like that for a long time, and that's sort of like why, like, the conservatives sort of treated abortion kind of like the dog catching the car, right? Like if they go out and if they actually do it, then they don't know what to do with themselves afterwards, right? Like the dog actually goes out and catches the taxi or whatever. Now, right? It's like they sort of did it like that, and they had good reason, because a lot of Christians are one-issue voters, and that was the only issue they ever voted on, right? And that's actually part of the reason why turnout for the 2022 midterms was so low, because the conservative Christian, the moral majority people already got what they wanted. So why should they go out and vote if they already won? So that was another reason why turnout was small. I mean, it wasn't the only reason. There was also a lot of unusually high turnout on the Democratic side, which is awesome. I wish we could do that again next time, right? But it's sort of like, yeah, they may have screwed the pooch on themselves. And you think I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing such a big push for the trans stuff on the from the conservative side, right? They're trying to motivate, like with the trans shit and the woke shit, and that's why they're calling everything fucking woke, right? They're saying, they're getting mad at like M&M packaging, and they're trying to label everything as woke, and the military is woke, and Joe Biden's woke spending, and all this other shit. They're trying to do that because they need something to motivate people to get them out there to vote, because they're not coming out for abortion anymore, right? And which kind of brings us to our next segment here. Let's see, Lantern Light. I mean, Christian nationalism is barely about Christianity anymore. Yes, and you're absolutely right about that. Right. Actually, I forgot your other I missed your other comment. Lantern Light. I mean, once the pretext is dropped, they won't need to waste government funds giving poor people a livelihood. That's true. That's true. There's nobody like conservative Christians that hate poor people more. Right. And that's the thing, like your other comment there, where it's not about Christianity. You're absolutely right. An actual country run by Christian principles, right? If we actually did use Christian principles in this country, wouldn't be such a bad place, because Christian principles say that all of the poor should be fed. It says that, rich people should not exist. That's a core Christian tenet right there. You're not supposed to be rich as a Christian. You're supposed to sell everything you own and devote your life to Jesus. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what he actually says. That comes from, a lot of the shit that Christians say they believe and all that comes from other parts of the Bible, right? And even things like, Paul and all that, the letters of Paul, the shit like that, right? Other apostles, right? But, as for the actual words of Jesus Christ himself, he's very, very progressive, mostly, not all the way, but, he tells people to get rid of all your wealth and feed the poor and the hungry. Right. That's Jesus Christ. It's really not a bad creed to follow. Really. I mean, maybe I could do without the whole burning witches thing, which is also something Jesus Christ said. Right. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. That is actually the words of Jesus Christ as well. But, as far as, you're supposed to, for example, treat immigrants well. You're supposed to treat strangers well. You're supposed to treat homeless people well. You're supposed to welcome them to your country and help people when they need help, right? Help poor and homeless people and immigrants. The immigrant to your country should be treated like a brother. I can't remember the exact Bible verse and what it exactly says, but that's most definitely in the Bible. It also says that you are supposed to be a pacifist. So if we actually lived by Christian principles, we wouldn't be spending $800 billion on the fucking military every year, right? That military spending would be cut way down. because, it actually says in there, right, that, you're supposed to turn the other cheek. And that's just not an expression. Christians like to twist that around and say, no, you have self-defense. That's not a realistic thing. He was saying that metaphorically. I like how everything's fucking metaphorical. Like, all of the shit that they like is fucking metaphorical. That the stuff that they don't like, is metaphorical, right? While the rest of us, the rest of this shit is literal. Like, all the things they do like is 100% literal. It's such bullshit. Hang on, I need to plug in my laptop here. And it says you're supposed to turn the other cheek. If someone attacks you, you're supposed to turn around and let them hit you again. You're not supposed to fight back, right? If someone steals from you, you're supposed to give him more. Someone takes your cloak, or takes your whatever, then offer him your shirt as well, or whatever it says. I can't remember exactly the verse, but that's a very famous one. I can't remember the exact wording of the verse, but it essentially says that, give him your cloak also, right? Because the idea is if someone's stealing from you, they must be desperate. They must need help, right? So you're supposed to help people when you're a Christian. A country based on that doesn't sound so bad. Sounds like people would be fed. Sounds like the poor would be the poor and the homeless would be taken care of, right? But every time Christians get in power, they do the exact fucking opposite of that. They do everything they can to take those things away. They cut welfare programs. They get rid of things like that would help homeless people, right? They get rid of things like fucking SNAP benefits for kids, right? Last year, there was a thing last August where a vote came up to limit the price of insulin at $35 an hour, or $35 a month for insulin, right? And every single Republican voted against that. Every single one. They all voted against a $35 cap on insulin, right? So, I guess the Christian thing is to let people spend thousands and thousands of dollars for insulin, right? I mean, if you think you think you'll never get diabetes because you're you eat healthy and shit like that, I got news for you, man. It happens when you get old. Even if you're it can just happen to you genetically, and something that may not ever be a problem when you're young. And then you wake up one day when you're 75 and shit, and suddenly you got diabetes. Shit happened to my grandfather. He didn't get it until he was 78. Right? I mean, seriously. It's just, through his whole life. And he wasn't grossly overweight. He didn't drink beer every fucking day or chow down on candy bars and shit all the time. He just got old. That's a perfect example of something that we should be doing that would make measurable life improvements for a large number of people, right? And the Republicans shot that shit down. Why? Because they're assholes. They're assholes who all just happen to be Christians, And that's the thing. It's I don't think it's just just being a Christian makes you an asshole. I don't think that at all. There's too many good people out there, too many good Christians trying to do the right thing, who are not, fundamentalist proto-fascists. Actually, they're not even proto-fascists, full-on fascists. There's plenty of them who are not like that out there now, but seems like every day that goes by, they're just a smaller and smaller minority, And it's almost to the point where, if I was a practicing Christian, I would be embarrassed at this point now, because they're so far fucking gone that you just can't can't take these people. Not only can you not take them seriously, it's it's almost embarrassing to be identified with them, I would say. Just conspiracy theories and shit like that. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.